Hello, welcome to the Bali Effect. This is Preeti Tana.
And this is Dee Dee Perry.
What's up, Dee?
Happy almost Halloween, Preeti.
Oh, thank you. I'm not Halloween is, we've talked about this. I'm not really into Halloween, although it is my sister's birthday. So I do,
Oh, okay.
and we are celebrating big time tomorrow, but Halloween, getting dressed up, not really my thing.
Have I told you my whole Dee Dee sister story? I think I have, but I haven't shared it here. But I just love that one time when I was at your house and your mom was referring to Dee Dee and she's like talking about all this stuff. And I was like, but I don't know who, what, huh, huh. But I had learned that Dee Dee is also a word for sister.
Yes, it means big sister. So my niece actually said to me last week that she was listening to a podcast and can tell the difference when I say Dee Dee for you and Dee Dee, my sister. She has a very slight
Oh,
pronunciation difference, but I know when you're talking about which one. So how
see,
are
I
you
did it.
today,
I
Dee?
didn't, but oh, D, right, that's me, just single D. Honestly, Preeti, I'm better than I was yesterday,
Yeah,
which is its own victory. But as I think I alluded to in the last episode last week, it's it's rough right now. I'm not even gonna lie about it. It is rough, and I feel like I'm on an emotional roller coaster. Seriously,
hmm
not necessarily of the affairs of the heart variety, but just so much seems like it's coming at me at moments. It just seems like too much, and at other moments it's like just breathe. Just get from moment to moment, sunshine to sunset, and some kind of way I'll get through it. But it's hard. It
yeah,
is really hard right now.
yeah.
But this moment and doing this activity always makes me feel better.
I
So,
know. It does, right? Every time we get to this Friday moment, no matter what's going on, we tend to be present and we can get into this. And after every hour, we are always so excited. I think there's another hour of FaceTime that happens because they're like, oh, they said this and we went through this and this was so exciting. But speaking of, kind of getting through the moments, what are your thoughts on energy?
energy like physics or energy like
Energy, feeling of energy, moment to moment. Do you make a connection to what you're feeling, internally and the energy around you?
okay, got you. I definitely do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I spend quite a bit of time trying to be cognizant of other people's energy more so than my own.
Mm.
Especially this year because I can feel myself having a lot less energy, for lack of a better word, for
Mm.
negative energy outside of me. And so I have to really wall up against it because I think it takes something on for me. But I think that we all have energy, we all are made up of whatever we're made up of,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's a power to that. There's something behind all of that, and it can be, manifested for good. It can be manifested for harm. I'm about the good stuff
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, and I think that's part of why you and I are connected. I think we have similar vibes, similar wavelengths. But what do you think?
Oh, I believe in energy. I believe in collective energy. I can often walk into a room or walk into a space and quickly feel whether I want to be a part of that collective moment or not.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you can influence energy, your own and others. And
Mm-hmm.
as I've gotten older, it's much faster, the connection to my personal self and energy.
Okay.
I think it used to be slightly confusing as to why I would feel a certain way or why all of a sudden I was feeling sad or,
Mm-hmm.
quite the opposite, or all of a sudden there was a moment of joy. But it truly, I think we operate in energy always. And I think we just are energetic beings, whether we're on this plane or another plane in a different world. And so there's something quite comforting in sort of the recognition or understanding that that's truly what we are. Energy
Absolutely.
moving, through different moments in life. So yeah, totally.
Do you think the energy actually ever goes away, or do you think that it just gets recycled or transmuted in other places?
I think more of the latter. I don't think it goes away. I think it transforms really, and it sort of ebbs and flows. I just got the visual. I don't know if you have ever seen any of those science fiction movies, or even a movie of the human body where the cells sort of traveling through the ether and it changes form. That's similar to what I think about energy. I don't think it goes away. I don't.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as well, because I think we're just bearers of it. I don't think we are it.
Yeah.
But we're allowed to hold it for a while and we can share it with other people,
I'll go with that.
I have nothing to back this up other than, I feel something going on. But similarly, Preeti, do you think that in this world of, all these different energy balls floating around, do you think that there's any such thing as a coincidence?
Coincidence. I don't think coincidence to me is a little bit of a random occurrence of events, and I feel as though I'm more in the camp of Carl Jung and synchronicity. I don't.
For those of us who aren't the book brainies, would you like to break that down a little bit? What you just said, Carl?
Well, Carl Jung. We know that Carl Jung is a great philosopher, and he sort of, I believe, coined the term around synchronicity, right? And so he didn't necessarily say that there was no coincidences. He just, his theory is nothing is by chance. I think he believed that these moments in times that we would categorize as coincidences, little events, are actually planned, or not planned, but they're actually moments that are put forth by the observer or by your own mind, and therefore it's guiding you down a path. So it's not that I don't believe in I just don't think they're random moments in time that come together to give you an answer. I think it is about understanding your environment, and actually it's not a coincidence. I think it's your divine path. So that, similar, but not in random at all. How about you?
Thank you for asking. I actually and I think I will embrace something that someone once told me, and it actually was someone that I worked with, and then we worshiped together for many years. Her name was Jahira. If you ever hear this, shout out to you. She said there's no such thing as a coincidence. It's just God acting anonymously. And I was like, makes me want to pay attention to the seemingly random a little bit more closely.
But that's it's the depth at which we pay attention to those moments. I think the term coincidence maybe was coined by someone who wasn't paying attention, who sort of on the surface is like, oh, wow, this happened and that meant that. I think it truly is how deep we go into those moments and how we understand them.
Perspective is everything.
Everything, Dee. Everything.
Well, why are we having this conversation on the eve of Halloween about energy and all this other stuff?
I think a few things. It's the eve of Halloween. We have an election coming up.
Ooh, that's scary.
It is scary. And I do believe that we've all felt the collective energy of what is happening in this world. I think that is part of what people are feeling when they can't say what it is. Oh, I don't feel that great. There's so much going on. And when so many individuals or energetic beings feel a certain way, I think that drives a consensus of feelings, if you will. We're having this conversation because a couple of weeks ago, coincidentally, no, just kidding, by divine intervention, I met our guest today. And it was so interesting because she, first of all, again, talk about energy. I walked into where I was meeting our guests, and I immediately felt at ease, and I felt excited, and I felt as though this, next hour of spending time with her was going to be fantastically brilliant. And it was that and so much more. And so I was super excited to have her come talk to us today, especially on the eve of Halloween, because I think she's going to give us tremendous insight. And so welcome to the Bali Effect, Britta Dubbels. How are you?
Hello, Pretty. Hello, Didi. Thank you so much for having me.
This is a gift. I have been looking forward to this since Preeti told me about you. So this is really exciting. Preeti, would you like to tell now I got told, Shante, what's up, by my friend that we have like certifiably at least 10 people listening. We are up. Our numbers are up. So can you tell the 10 who are listening who Britta is?
Yes, I'd love to. Britta is a certified energy worker, shamanic practitioner, a hypnotherapist. Britta was born a clear cognoscente. Did I say that correctly? She's a divine vortex for spiritual empowerment and a consciousness activist. Born in a small village in northern Germany, Britta was whisked to New York City at the age of 17 to work as a model with the prestigious Ford agency. Following several years gracing magazine covers worldwide, Britta was eventually called to develop her innate gifts as a channel of light information in the service of humanity. I mean, we have to take a moment.
Kiss the ring. Kiss the ring. That's what just happened.
And what I always
Stunningly beautiful, of course.
Beautiful.
Inside and out.
Inside and out. And I didn't even know this about Britta until until we started talking about this podcast. And I was amazed to read and hear and see all of these things about you. So Britta, welcome.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. So wonderful to be here with you both. Yes, and on the eve of Halloween. Very exciting.
Yeah, and Britta, you actually picked this day because you mentioned the blue moon tomorrow. And so why don't we start talking about that a little bit? What is so significant about this blue moon? Why was it important for you to have this conversation the day before?
And what is a blue moon? I look at the moon and it looks pretty silverish to me.
Right. Yes. So the blue moon is the second full moon in the same month. So we had the first full moon on October 1st. And then tomorrow we have the second full moon, which is always called the blue moon. So once in a blue moon.
Oh!
They're very rare.
Just
right?
like a Bali moment. Okay.
And tomorrow's full moon is, of course, all full moons are always about completion and endings, finishing something up, a cycle. But tomorrow's full moon is also a very powerful manifestation moon because it's the hunter's moon and it is the blue moon. So, manifestation, I feel, is becoming very, very important for us to rewrite and to really understand from, a more heartfelt place. Because manifestations of the ego and the need and the greed, all of those ways of manifesting are not serving us and are not really going to be supported anymore moving forward. Versus really understanding manifestation from the heart, from the soul, from that depth of one's truth, to really look for bigger manifestations, right? What is serving my highest and greatest good, and what is to the highest and greatest good of humanity, of earth, of my family, right? To really understand this this unity, this interconnectedness that we are really moving into.
During this full moon, this blue moon frame, are people's channels for understanding or just having more spiritual insight any greater than at other parts of the month, or is it not connected?
It is connected. It really is, because also tomorrow, and this is why I was so excited about doing this podcast tonight, tomorrow on Halloween, the veil is the thinnest of the entire year.
Oh,
And
wow.
yes, and so, it's really understanding that we are here playing human, but really we are these beautiful infinite souls, and we are so much more than just these bodies, and that there is so much more around us and supporting us, and this awareness also brings with it great opportunity, right, for this awareness.
So, you've said in I don't know, that was a minute. I think some people probably on the scale of extreme understanding of what you were saying, manifestation for the highest good, the veil is the thinnest. These are maybe concepts for some people that are new. And so when we talk about manifesting for the higher good, I think the word manifest has been used in great amount the past couple of years. Certainly, Dee Dee's auntie Oprah, or Dee Dee likes to call Oprah.
She claims you too.
Right. I think the word manifesting probably originated, from her, but in a mainstream way. But when you talk about manifesting for the greater good, can you give us a little bit of an example between what I would call everyday manifesting versus this manifesting for the greater good?
Yes, absolutely. And so, thank you, by the way, for, reining me in, but not, right? Because we all get so used to the ways in which we exist, right? And so for me, my existence and my reality is very much that of a co-creation with the divine, with the sacred. And to me, this earth process that we are going through right now, I do want to say that I'm calling this the ascension. We're in the ascension process. This is a beautiful awakening process of humans becoming more awake, more aware, deepening their understanding, deepening their sensitivity to what you guys just said in the beginning, energy awareness, a sense of listening to themselves, their intuition, this feeling of rightness, right? That we all have. And it doesn't need to include any specific belief, because we all have it, right? And so to be able to listen to it more, and to be able to respect it more, and really realize that this is actually a very important voice that is coming from within, that is actually connected to a much higher and greater orchestration, is really the bottom line for authentic manifestation. So that we shift from the personal will and ego to a much deeper sense of rightness.
I wonder, and I know we're going to get to this a little bit later on, but when you say that we're in this moment of ascension and people are becoming so much more aware, do you think that is something that began as a consequence of the 2020 experience? Or do you think that people or humanity was on this journey even before the pandemic?
Definitely way before the pandemic, this has really been around always, always in different ways, in different forms and shapes, and through different mediations. But it's not always been accepted, right? And it's not even always been safe. Right? To even talk about it, to even practice it, to even entertain it, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely been growing. When we look back at the 60s, right? That was a huge wave of awakening. But that didn't get to truly manifest, and I have a theory on that.
What is your theory on
Do
that?
tell.
So in the 60s, where this beautiful big wave of awakening was really taking place, it was also the time in which, we were producing a lot of rubber, and everybody was beginning to wear sneakers, and everybody was beginning to wear rubber soles and shoes, and driving in cars on rubber tires, and houses being insulated and isolated. And so even though this awakening was taking place, we were also distancing ourselves and separating ourselves from the earth connection, because science is confirming that through the earth we're receiving energy that actually promotes awareness, that promotes balance, that promotes health, that promotes a deepening sense of listening and knowing and feeling. And so coupled with that, then of course there was the aspect of tons of drugs, and everybody just want to get out of here, and not really dealing with the mundane of embodying it into the grounding of the earth connection.
I would think that has only increased the feeling of being separate and,
Needing drugs.
Right. And so what do you think has shifted then, in terms of, is it more awareness that I need to step into those moments, much like how I met you? I need to step into those moments, or I need to remove the barriers in order for me to connect to that divine? Or, why would it be different now? Why would that is?
Before you answer that, Britta, Preeti, can you say why you met her?
Can I say why I met her? Okay.
Yes.
Wow,
what brought you to her? What brought you to the Bali moment where you were seeking a healer?
I think I've always been connected in some way. And for me, the way that I would connect to the divine, if you will, or connect to that source, was through travel. And really what that did for me was it kept me in the present moment, right? And so when you're in the present moment, at least for me, the connection to some of those ideas is much greater. You're not as distracted. And given that we haven't been traveling, and sort of, I think for all of us, our lives look very different, I truly went onto Google and started looking for a healer.
Beautiful.
And so I ended up at this beautiful place, and I actually did not specifically know who, it was a shamanic healing that I had wanted to experience, and I did not know who would be my healer, but this brings us back to synchronicity. I don't think it wasn't a coincidence. I think Britta was brought into my life for a reason. And I was able to then, through our session, reconnect to really the source that I was missing. And there's so many other components of that session that we could go into, but I'll end it there. And I'll also say that Britta is extremely, extremely gifted in her practice. Okay, so where were we?
Yes,
that is
the question that she posed to you.
That is how we met. And so I'd like to know bringing it back to the question of what is different now in terms of that manifestation and not having all the hurdles.
Yes. And so this is where, I want to just come back to what both of you were saying right in the beginning of this podcast about, okay, so, is it coincidence or is it not, right? And in my guidance and in my communication with what I call light, I refer to it as light, most often. It's really, everything is very orchestrated. Everything is very much divinely orchestrated. It's so specific, really, that nothing is an accident. Nothing really is a coincidence. And the souls that we are, we have come here to play human so many times over. Right? We have had so many experiences, and we come here to grow. We come here to evolve. We come here to not only experience, because that was very much of the old energy, we've just come here to, oh, now I'm going to go experience this, and now I'm going to choose that kind of a body to experience that, and then I'm going to choose this body to experience this. So this is really what we're evolving out of now, because all of that free choice really got us into a lot of karmic debt. It really got us into a lot of accumulation of energy, of the old, the negative, the fear, the lack, the limitation, the suffering, right? Which is, what we're still seeing so much of on Earth. And all of that needs to be healed, and all of that needs to be cleared. And so this process now is really taking us out of just coming in for experience, but really focusing on, from a soul level, the evolution, the growth, the true choosing of who we really are, and to really learn our lessons, and to really choose to go deeper. And as we go deeper, and as we learn our lessons, and as we complete cycles, not only do we become much lighter energetically, we also become lighter collectively. And as this is happening, as we can see now, there is a great shift. There's a great an awareness shift happening that is a part of this awakening process. And so do we have any less of the disconnect? No. But at the same time, we also have more of the connect because of social media, because of the internet, because of Wi-Fi, because of this beautiful ability to connect with the world. So even though oftentimes, again, there's the balance of something being used for good and something being used for bad, right? But it is, a beautiful gift to us, as well as we're moving through this, and we're talking about it, and we're free to talk about it and safe to talk about it now.
But Britta, I'm going to ask you a tough question, and I'm this, even in my explanation of how we met, I'm acutely and aware that it's almost, it's a privileged conversation. And so for anyone listening to this who is like, they've got to be kidding me. I mean, I'm just trying to get through the day here. I mean, I just lost my job, or I have a sick parent. Can you offer an insight to anyone who understands what you're saying, but cannot see a way to connect to that divine or connect to that light? Because quite honestly, they're having trouble making it through the day.
Yes.
And what I might just want to jump in and add, what it sounds like, and I can relate to it myself, it feels so horrible. The emotions of the struggles that so many of us are experiencing, when it just feels so all-consuming. How do you still find a way to see the greater divinity, or just the greater clarity when you're just feeling it really heavily?
Yes. So from here, before this podcast, right, you guys had asked me, well, what was that one moment? Right, this is something that you both use for the podcast. And so The answer really is that one big moment that was my big moment. Of course, there are many, 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 many moments, but the big moment for me was the realization and the understanding of that it is very important to learn to separate thoughts from emotions. Okay? Because the emotions, they're energy. Everything here is energy. The emotions need to be processed. They have to be felt. But because we are so conditioned and so programmed to, as soon as emotion comes up, to jump into thinking, to jump into, how can I make this go away? How can I escape this? How can I distract myself? This is bad. Something is wrong. Who do I blame? Do I blame myself? Right? It just goes on and on and on. And the thought process of the old energy, suffering, yes, the blaming, the shaming, the judging, the guilting, all of these old ways of thinking need to be taken out of feeling. Because we can only, and I know this is not what everybody wants to hear, because it's a real choice, it's a real commitment, but I've made that choice, I've made that commitment, and I know so many others that have made that commitment and are making these commitments and are really noticing a big change, a big relief, because these emotions that are there, they've stored whatever we've not felt from any experience, any trauma, any pain, any hurt. It stores in the biology, it stores within our body, it stores within our energy field, and it has to be felt. It will come up, and it's oftentimes coming up at the worst, most inopportune times, right? And so to really understand that, yes, you are finding yourself in a challenge, in a painful situation, and to have this compassion for self and all of that goodness and all of that kindness and all of that love that we're always talking about, extending it to others. Didi, that you always give to others, to give it to yourself. Because we need to be able to extend this tenderness, this patience, this, it's okay, you can make it, you can handle this. Breathe, just breathe and feel, to give ourselves that love and to hug ourselves and to support ourselves through this change. That is what will take you to the other side of it. And so I understand to learn to control the thoughts and to learn to clear the head is a big, big undertaking, especially if one is prone to overthinking, which many are.
I'm getting better.
Good. Yes. But it's there is a way. There is a way to really understand that you don't have to think about everything all the time. It's okay to actually not think. And it's okay to actually use the breath. Keep following the breath. Bring your attention down to the breath. Keep focusing onto the breath, and the thoughts have no choice but to float by, because the thoughts need you for their survival. Right? They can't exist without your attention. And so the more you bring this practice into every moment of your pain, of your sorrow, of your mourning, of your hardship, which is not something that any magic wand is going to make go away, right? It's something that you are here to level up to. It's something that you have to embrace, no matter how hard, no matter how much you're wanting to escape it. It is yours. It is your experience right now. Therefore, it is yours to deal with. It is yours to face. And every time you remember to focus onto the breath and to let the thoughts go and to just be with yourself in an emotional state. And yes, anger comes up. That's okay. You have to release the anger. You have to pay attention to feeling and letting the emotions come out, because that is what really is the suffering. It needs to be cleared. It has to be released. And the only way that can be done is by letting the mind be clear, letting the thoughts go, keeping it separate. Emotions are not meant to be thought. They're meant to be felt. And it's also the only way that you can open up your energy to actually feel your intuition.
I think we should end the podcast there.
Oh my gosh.
Britta, I think you've, of course,
It's long.
so beautifully answered that question. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
An echo. But I have to also ask, as a child growing up in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
were you aware that you had this gift?
Yes. Yes.
And so talk to us a little bit about that journey, because I do recall when we met, you said, I think I asked you how you got started. And you said, I've always known, and then I ignored it for a while. And then it yanked me back, I believe were your words. So tell us that story.
So my story is the story of being born a clear cognizant, which means I was and am receiving information through seeing, sensing, feeling, knowing, hearing, tasting, smelling. And when I was very little, it was very normal for me. I remember standing in my crib, having active conversation telepathically with Source. I would see my parents fight, and I would see the dynamics of their energies, of what was going back and forth. And at that point, it all was very intuitive, right? It was because children are very, very pure, right? In their connection still to Source and to the knowing of everything. So I did not question it at all when I was little. But then as I was growing up, and then my parents divorced, and that's really when changes began to happen for me, because, my life was not easy in any way. I really felt very abandoned, by my parents. And that comes later on, where I do have to face my own healing. Mm-hmm. Right. But so after my parents divorced, we moved out, and I was actually the one to tell my mom, we're packing our bags, we're leaving, we're going. And so once we did that, I ended up moving in with my grandmother.
How old were you at this point? Just
8.
Out of curiosity. Wow. Okay.
Yep. So very, very strong. Right. Then. So, but then, so then my mom had to work 3 jobs, went back to school, classic story of a single mom just trying to figure it out. And I moved in with my grandmother. And once I moved in with my grandmother, it was really a confirmation of everything that I had been practicing so naturally, because my grandmother could see. And once she realized that I could see, it became this beautiful relationship of, her playing with it with me, which made it so acceptable. It made it okay for me. It made it, a positive thing, a way to connect. And in Germany, my grandmother, it was very normal for us to go to the cemetery every day, because we would tend the graves. We would tend her husband's and her mom's grave every day to visit, to say hello to them, make sure the flowers are fresh. And so the cemetery has a lot of active movement, right? Mm-hmm. So she would always be like, see that over there, see that over there. So it's almost as if she trained me.
What were you seeing? in the cemetery? I mean, I can make the assumption, and just to clarify for anyone listening, when you say that you were in the crib, you could see energy, but could you connect with a specific energy, a specific spirit, a specific source? What were you seeing in the cemetery when she was saying, look at that, look at that? Give us a visual.
So it was nothing specific, and it was nothing really that we ever wanted to get too close to.
Okay.
Right? It was more from afar. It was just souls. It was just spirits, hanging out. Sometimes we would see spirits even holding candles, caring for other spirits that, were still there. But generally it was more of, a quick shade there or a quick figure there. Mm-hmm. But every now and then we got really blessed with being able to see, like this one time I remember, I will never forget that it was this young girl, and she was holding a candle. And so she was visiting somebody there, and she saw us seeing her, and she looked over at us, gave us an acknowledgement, and then just kept going. So it was pretty magical. It was, yes. But then once I turned teenager, that's when everything changed. And, I really didn't want my gifts. I didn't want to live with my grandmother anymore because she was too strict. And I was full on rebel at this point. So, this is when the other part of my journey then opened up, where I was interested in boys. I didn't want anything to do with my gifts. I just wanted to be, hanging out, doing my thing, and wanting to be liked. And then I won this modeling contest on German TV, which then started my modeling career in Germany, which then got me to Eileen Ford in New York, which then from there opened up, this big platform, which then, of course, also took me into a completely different opposite direction of my ego, really living out the ego, really experiencing the ego, right? Because it's that world of modeling. And that was a fantastic experience for me, and it was necessary for my journey and my purpose, because at the end of it, as I was, mid-20s toward, the later part of my 20s, not only was I depleted and empty and angry and tired and sad, but it was also really that which then awoke me back to Spirit saying, okay, you've had your fun, enough with that, now you're coming back.
Wow. So it's so interesting, because it makes me feel as though, it's sort of along the lines of, we all have this gift, and it's a matter of whether we are clear enough and can tap into it. Because I don't think you woke up one morning and said, okay, I'm done, right? It truly is a closing off of a thought process, and almost a closing off of that channel. And so what I find so interesting is that along that ride, as a teenager, as a model, that your soul didn't want to tap into that feeling of being connected, right? I mean, it was completely the opposite world of what you had grown up in.
Yes, very much so, very much so. And, and again, this was also very important, because once I came to, the end of the modeling and Spirit really calling me back onto the path, it was not a gentle call. It was basically just the rug being just yanked out from underneath me. And that's when I knew I had to now heal. Mm-hmm. I had to heal my pain, my abandonment, my fears, my insecurities, and most importantly, learn my ego. Right? Because through the healing, as I was focusing on my healing work and really focusing on schooling, being able to see, I was able to witness my own healing. I was able to witness how the ego hooks in, how it energetically manifests into the thoughts, into the emotions, into the patterns, into the habits, into, all of these ways in which we exist and identify with. So, it was really priceless in terms of learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many questions.
I see Dee waiting to.
I'm like, how do I even formulate this? You earlier were two things, big questions that I have from all of this rich wisdom that you are sharing. When you say that by the end, of your party years, you felt like the rug was pulled out from under you. Was that like spiritually, or just were your circumstances just suddenly seemingly upended? Or did you just feel inside, I was so miserable, I knew that this wasn't working anymore? Or a combination of the two?
Combination of the two, for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
And earlier you had referred to the moment when you decided to make the choice that, what, these emotions that I am feeling, they aren't going to run the show. I will give them their space, but they are not in the driver's seat. How did you get to that moment? What was that about? Because I need to make that choice. And I'm just curious. And I think other folks might be too.
Yes. Great question. So emotions only run the show if and when we think into them, or if and when we let the emotions trigger us into reaction. Right? A certain way of reacting. So it could be anywhere from needing to shop, or needing to, fill time, or needing to have a drink, or needing to have a smoke, right? So emotions push us into thinking and choices. And so this is exactly why it is so important that we give emotions the time and space to clear out, because they do store and they will continue to run the show until we recognize that the moment we can sit with and just feel, or just, again, the trigger comes, you want to react, don't. Find your breath, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much you're having to fight it in the beginning, because in the beginning it's harder. It gets easier quite quickly, actually, because you're really taking your power back. And the more you take your power back, the easier it becomes. But in the beginning, it's really the moment that when you notice, when emotion comes, you feel it, right? It's a big, strong wave. And this is the cue. This is the cue to, okay, what can I do right now? Breath, right? Find your breath. Find a way to, maybe take yourself for a walk. If it's better for you in that moment, give yourself a hug and give yourself permission to feel. It's okay. What are you feeling? Ask yourself, what are you feeling? And you might not even get an answer. You might not even know what it is that you're feeling, because it could be a soup. It could be, a combination of so much stored stuff that wants to come out. And again, focus onto the breath. Be in your body, breathe into your body, take yourself for a walk if necessary. If easier, scream into a pillow, punch a pillow, right? Just get it out. We never, ever, ever want to release it on another person, on another being, right? We never, ever want to act it out in any way, but we ourselves are very, very, very responsible. No matter how this pain came to be, once we have it, it is our own responsibility to take responsibility for it and learn to work with it, learn to breathe through it, learn to sit with it if necessary, cry it out, scream it out, walk it out, just feel it out, stay present to it. And so this is really something that, because I'm a very deep feeling being, and I realized, when these waves would come, that I had no choice. I had no choice but to face it, but to deal with it. And, as we're ascending, more and more and more people are also realizing that, yes, you are very sensitive. Yes, you're very deep feeling. And yes, you've been trained and conditioned to make it a bad thing. But it's not a bad thing. It's really a beautiful thing. It's not easy in the beginning, but it's really the gift that keeps on giving, because once you have really allowed yourself to feel without the thoughts, or reaction, once you've really allowed yourself to be with the emotion and clear it out, as you will notice, when you can just be with the emotion, it'll clear out. And much faster as if you go on a roller coaster of thought. Yes.
I think that is so important to remember, especially over the next few days. I think emotions are running high. I think many people are feeling anxious, nervous, and quite honestly don't know what they will do, if certain events take place. So I think the importance of separating your thought from emotion and sitting with that emotion, because we know it will be, strong in some cases, is something people should really take into consideration. Dee?
What just came to me, and this is going to sound so crass, so excuse me, but in advance, pun slightly intended, but it almost feels like it's like passing gas. Like it's going to stink for a while, but just let it go. Because eventually it's going to clear out.
Don't hold it in.
Don't hold it. It's bad for you. Don't.
Let it out. Let it rip. And then it will just it came to me. That I won't even take credit for that, but that's what just came to my mind. And that's what I think I'm going to need to tell myself when those thoughts come. I just had Britta, a doctor tell me yesterday, because I was getting very upset. She was like, sadness is a disease, but don't cry. Don't be sad. You shouldn't be so sad. And I'm like,
Britta's horrified.
She told me that. She hands me a tissue. She's like, don't cry. And that actually made me feel worse, because for me, the tears were the way of getting it out of my cells. And I was thinking, if I don't release this, is there potentially going to be a negative impact to my body? Do you think that there is, that, if you don't get the emotions out, that it can impact our health?
100%. 100%. Yes, absolutely. I do know that not all of Western medicine is yet there, but more and more and more are really realizing that, yes, stored and suppressed emotions have so much to do with illness, with disease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah, it's that suppression, you know what I mean? And again, I'm saying it again because it's important to remember emotions store. They store whatever we don't feel. It stays, it gets stuck in our organs and our cells and our biology. And there is nothing more healthy and important than to really learn a whole new perspective on feeling.
Well, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
We
I was
probably
confused. What am
I
I
feel like
supposed to do?
we need another hour.
I
It's
know,
already,
right?
but I do want to mention that I've listened to a few of your podcasts, The Illumination Game. I really enjoy them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Such great insight and knowledge. And so I'm curious, if I mention a word, would you be willing to give us all a spiritual definition of each word in one sentence or less?
Sure, I'll try my best.
Okay. First word, desire.
Heart's desire.
Choice.
This earth realm is governed by free choice.
She's good. Wow.
Incredible.
So great. Facts. Preach. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
A few more. Vulnerability.
The doorway to freedom.
Yes. Ego.
Ooh, fear and enemy.
Yeah. 100%. I cannot thank you enough for joining us today and being open to the experience. And I still am feeling the effects of spending that hour with you. And for anyone that is interested in speaking with Britta or understanding, what she has to offer or having a great conversation with her, please go check her out. You can find her on Instagram under the handle Ascension Midwife. Is that correct?
Ascension Midwife.
Yeah. Britta, how else can folks get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more or perhaps getting a service with you?
So my email is britta@brittadubbels.com. And my website is also brittadubbels.com.
Perfect.
Yes.
Any last words for our listeners as we head into Halloween and what is no doubt a very emotional week ahead?
Actually, yes, two things. So Spirit is just slightly correcting me in regard to the ego, that we are not to judge it or fear it. We're to learn it. We're to embrace it and recognize it and work with it, recognize its voice in order for us to be the ones controlling it.
Thank you, Spirit.
Thank you, Spirit.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Okay, good. And the other thing I think is just, trust the light. Trust the light orchestration. At this point, I am all, whatever is to happen, I know that there is a much higher purpose for it. And this ascension process is not an easy process. It's not a beautiful or pleasant process. Because we're breaking down structures in every way, on every level. And whatever that takes in order for people to wake up more, that's what's going to happen.
Mic drop.
And on that note, we had so many mic drops at the entirety of the podcast. It's amazing.
Heaven, yes. And with that, we will certainly make the plug to everybody. Go and vote. Go and vote. Trust the light and vote.
Yes. Vote.
Yes.
Britta, thank you so much.